Welcome into college football preview, Big Ten East Division. I am Drew Martin, joined by Robbie Veno. We're breaking it down here for the next 10 minutes or so. And Robbie, checking out these odds, it's getting me excited to bet some college football. We got Big Ten Conference futures here. Talking about the East side, Ohio State, the heavy favorites to win the Big Ten at minus 175. Next team up, Robbie, such a big change to plus 800 on Penn State. So a wide gap here between number one and number two in terms of how the odds makers are raking these teams, Robbie. And if you're new to betting, minus 170 on Ohio State, meaning you have to risk $170. And if they win the Big Ten, you win 100. Whereas opposite that, Penn State plus 800, guys, risking $100 to win $800 if Penn State wins it. So you see the huge difference there in the futures market. But Robbie, at the top here, Ohio State minus 170. You think the Buckeyes are deserving of this large favorite number?
Well, they probably are, Drew. They probably are. I mean, the wealth of talent that they have. I think if you're going to nitpick and you're going to look for concerns where Ohio State is concerned, you would look at the quarterback position for sure. That's the first place to go, and know that Ohio State has a choice of 3 freshman quarterbacks to be able to start here. Certainly a downtick from Justin Fields by any measure. But it looks like C.J. Stroud will get the nod here. He was the first guy off the bench last year. It looks like he's going to be the starter here this year, but still undecided. You might go to the linebacking core, which is breaking in 3 new guys, but they're all upperclassmen, Drew. So again, the rich just reload. That's what Ohio State's doing here. I think they're deserving to be the favorite. Are they vulnerable is a question that we could ask. And I would think that second choice there, Penn State, has an opportunity here. I mean, Penn State, certainly on the offensive side of the football with Sean Clifford, and we'll get into some stuff here when we get into coaching changes, but Penn State was active in the transfer portal. Penn State was active with this coaching change, and like I say, we'll get into that and start talking about why Penn State might be a legitimate challenge to Ohio State.
Sure, Robbie. And talking about some other teams here, I mean, Michigan in this side of the Big Ten, plus 1,000. We also have Indiana, near plus 2,000, talking about kind of the next teams in line in the East Division. But before we get to sleeper picks here to win the conference, Robbie, what about some of the changes? We're seeing some big names here. Not only the head coaches, I don't see a new head coach for this season in the division, but we do have Greg Schiano, Mel Tucker in their second year, which coming off of COVID, I don't know whether to call it, the second full year, kind of year and a half. It's kind of a tricky handicap in itself. Also, quarterbacks here. We get Alan Bowman. He was good at Texas Tech. I would look for a step up there at the Michigan quarterback position. Also, Anthony Russo, another name that kind of jumped off the board at me. He was multi-year starter at Temple University. What are you thinking for some of these coaches and maybe some new names entering the division?
Well, the good news, Drew, unlike when you and I were with Ralph Michaels and we did college football conference previews, the good news here is that everybody got their full complement of spring practice, right? How many times last year were we trying to count how many spring practices a team had and whether it would be a positive or a detriment to their team? Everybody's going through spring. Everybody's heading into fall. The biggest coaching change that caught my eye, Drew, you'll like this one because I'm going to give you one of my favorite quotes from a coach from last year. But Mike Yurcich takes over as the offensive coordinator at Penn State. Kurt Shiraka out, Mike Yurcich in. Mike Yurcich, remember, he had the Texas offensive coordinator job last year, and he was the guy who famously said, calling plays gets me off. He's been around a long time. He was with Ohio State. He's most remembered for the time spent at Oklahoma State with Mike Stoops, where they put together some great offenses. But there's going to be a change here in Penn State where tempo is concerned. A team that played fairly slow last year, a team that's going to play extremely fast this year. They got through the spring conditioning and whatnot, which is good. I think that Penn State offensively with Sean Clifford, a guy who's going to be asked to do a lot of reading at the line of scrimmage. Remember, Yurcich is a guy who likes to just go fast to confuse defenses. So the quarterback comes up, he reads real quick and calls the play. When you have a veteran quarterback like Clifford, I think that could be troublesome for the opponent. And then, real quick here, speaking of Temple, because you talked about Anthony Russo, let's talk about Arnold Ebiketie, who was a second team all defensive end in the AAC last year. That comes in to take the place of a couple of missing defensive ends for Penn State this year. So I think pass rush will be there. This could be a team that challenges. You know, they have to go to Ohio State, which is the big drawback here, but maybe they can pull it off. I think if you're looking at second choices that might be able to catch Ohio State, it would be Penn State.
And Robbie, talking about sleepers in the division, I got one for you. And it doesn't sound like a sleeper just in the name, but what about Michigan here? You know, bringing in Alan Bowman from Texas Tech at the quarterback position. I think that kind of sets up well in the offense under Jim Harbaugh as the head coach, of course. Offensive line and defensive line look improved. I mean, you get that big plus price, Robbie, in terms of Michigan winning the conference, but also their season win total sitting at 7.5. This is a team, when you look down their schedule, Robbie, it's Western Michigan, Washington, Northern Illinois, Rutgers as their homecoming game. Not that they couldn't drop one, but I see them being 4-0 heading into October football, and with a 7.5 as their season win total right now. Michigan's actually a team I think we might be able to buy low on. Any thoughts here on Michigan and any other teams you wanted to throw out in terms of maybe you're looking to buy low on in the Big Ten East, Robbie?
Yeah, Michigan very capable just based on talent, right, Drew? I mean, they have the talent across the board. The question has been the offensive side of the football, especially the passing game. That might be where Alan Bowman helps, but it's not set in stone yet. Cade McNamara has actually been said to be the starting quarterback here, so we'll see. And again, with Josh Gaddis as the offensive coordinator, UI and Ralph, we talked about this frequently last year. Will Jim Harbaugh just let go of the reins? You don't bring a quarterback like Alan Bowman in who can run a hurry-up offense, an air raid style offense. You don't bring him in and, not let him do what he does. So we'll see how Michigan goes. Maybe those first few games that you mentioned, the potential 4-0 start will give Michigan a chance to get settled offensively. And from there, they could be dangerous. They play Ohio State to close the season, which could be a really big game. I'll give you a couple of mid-pack teams here real fast. From point spread perspective, Drew, not necessarily from they're going to win the conference, they're going to win the division. Those numbers, the future board numbers, I think Rutgers 21 of 22 guys back. Greg Schiano did a phenomenal job last year. Here's a team that was 5-4 against the spread, even though they were only 3-6 straight up. When you have a better spread mark than straight up mark, usually means you're undervalued. I don't think they're going to sneak up on people. I think people are kind of catching on to Rutgers maybe as being somewhat of a dark horse, but I think point spread wise, they could be a really good game. Remember, their last 6 games of the year last year, no team in regulation scored more than 30 against Rutgers, and the defense figures to be even better this year. Their quarterback situation looks to be solved. And I'll say this, Maryland, from a recruiting standpoint, from a talent standpoint, especially on the offensive side, they're sneaky good, and they made an offensive coordinator change here as well. Dan Enos. We remember him from Central Michigan, where he did real good work. He went to Arkansas with Brett Bielema. He's a guy who loves the running game first and play action off of that. Always been a favorite play caller of mine. Maybe Maryland can do a little bit of damage, but I think from a point spread perspective, Rutgers would be one I'd look at, and then potentially Maryland here as well. They're going to be dogs in a lot of these games, so we're asking them to be more competitive than they've been in the past.
I like it, Robbie. 3rd year under Mike Locksley, and we all remember how he was able to recruit there in the SEC conference. So bringing it up to Maryland might be a good look to bet on. Robbie, up against it time-wise, but anything else you want to throw out here, Big Ten East Division?
Real fast, we'll throw out one team potentially to fade. I think it would be Indiana, Drew. This is going to be a bandwagon waiting to happen here. Indiana's going to be expected to do things they haven't done in the past. Had a great year last year. They've got good returning talent, led by quarterback Michael Penix Jr. But when the point spreads start to change, sometimes your point spread results start to change. So maybe we look to fade Indiana just because the value in them may be gone at this point, and maybe they're a little bit overvalued looking at some preseason prognostications.
Yeah, Bloomington, they had it going on last season, 6-2. They did lose to Ohio State and then lost to the Outback Bowl, I believe, to Ole Miss. But Overall, Indiana might be a fade opportunity, kind of a sell high on the Hoosiers. For Robbie Veno, I am Drew Martin. College football right around the corner. Make sure to check out SportsMemo and WagerTalk.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in.